Are we rolling?
Are you a con man?
Wait. Okay.
Are you a con man?
Do it so you can see mine.
I'm ready.
Anyway, here we are at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Maki, my parents. And the purpose of this video is to just get some background history on my parents. So we have a few questions that we're going to ask them, see how they answer. I have a couple questions for you. First of all, this one's for Mom. What kind of family did you grow up with? Like how many kids were in your family and any specific things you remember about growing up when you were real young?
Well, I was the oldest of 10, and it seems like I was a mama for almost all of them. My mom and dad, they worked on a little farm, so Mom had to work out on the fields and with the animals and do all the other things, so I had to most of the time take care of the little sisters and brothers.
Uh-huh. How old was the next child below you?
17 months or younger.
So you really don't remember getting to spend time with your mom or dad just by yourself? There was always other
kids?
kids?
No, it was always somebody else.
Okay. How long did you stay home before you had to leave and go to work on your own?
Oh, I was old. I was 14.
And what kind of work did you do first when you left home?
Well, I went to babysitting first for the one engineer family there, and then I was there only less than a year, and then I went to work in a store in Lappeenranta.
Uh-huh. Dad, what kind of family did you grow up with?
I grew up in the first 7 years I stayed with my grandma. And then my uncle take care of me. You know, I went to another city and he picked me up from grandma's house to take it there. And I stayed with my uncle all the time when I was 14 and I left.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this is Daddy.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
In with me.
Just brothers and sisters, from total brothers and sisters.
Two brothers.
2 brothers?
Yeah.
And a sister?
Yeah, and sister.
Uh-huh. What kind of work did you do first when you were growing up?
First job I had, I delivered newspaper.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 1939 wartime, when Russian bombers came in the town, and I had to hurry up that I get every newspaper delivered before bombers came in town.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when I rolled it over, then I went to work for one of a metal fabricating shop.
Uh-huh. Do you remember any scary circumstances that you had during the war? Any real frightening times?
Oh, only thing I remember, we never did like when these bombers came in because we had to find some kind of hole until we can put our head, and we didn't have any shelters either. We just had to go to forest.
Some of the bombs land pretty close to where you were at times?
Not really close, but we can sure hear them.
What about you, Mom? Remember any scary
Oh yeah,
times?
there was quite a few. I was in Lappeenranta, and we sometimes ran in the cellar because that wouldn't have helped if the bomb came in the house. It was 2-story house, but if it fall on it, it would have gone in the cellar. So they were pretty close.
Uh-huh. Did they have those sirens that went off at that time that would warn you when they were?
Yeah, sometimes they went before bombs start falling, and sometimes when they went after the bombs were already falling.
Uh-huh. Okay. How did you two first meet? Let's hear what Dad says.
We met in San Francisco,
Where at?
Finnish Hall, Finnish, I don't know what, summer. Yeah, there was a Finnish summer celebration. Juhannus.
Were there a lot of Finns there?
Yeah, they had a lot of Finns and they had dances and so on. We met there.
How old were you?
22.
How old was Mom?
I think she was same age. Did you?
She doesn't tell
I don't have to ask questions like that.
So you get out of this one, Mark.
So how old were you when you came to America, Dad?
20 or 21 or 22.
Why did you come here instead of staying in Finland?
I write for my aunt and uncle and they, I asked if we have opportunity to come here because that time in Finland was very rough. Was everything shortages, and then now we're that pleasant time.
So where did your uncle live?
In the Central Valley, right here, close by.
What took you down to San Francisco then? When you met? You said you met in San Francisco.
My aunt take me up because they meet a lot of people and celebration, midsummer celebration is 24th June.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and she like to go and see some of her friends and take me up with.
Do you remember anything about your trip here to America? Yeah.
I remember we came in a ship named Stockholm and was very rough ocean. Was 10-11 for storm all the way through Atlantic, and ship was really swinging around.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
So once you got to the States, where did you land? Where did the ship land?
New York.
So how'd you get over here to
By
California?
train. We came by train. And the train first was Area Pacific to Chicago and then City of San Francisco was the name of a train, to take me to San Francisco.
How long did that whole trip take?
4 days.
From
And
Finland to San
in New York to San Francisco, but take 8 days to Sweden, Göteborg to New York.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So how about you, Mom? How old were you when you came here?
Let's see now. I was 22.
22? And what brought you here?
Adventure.
Venture.
Yeah.
Same thing, there wasn't much there in Finland and you wanted to...
Well, I really wasn't in too much of the need, and I never had much because my family didn't have that much. So what I had, I was satisfied with it. But I really didn't come for the materialistic reasons. I just
Uh-huh.
wanted to see the other part of the world.
So what kind of work did you do once you moved
Oh,
here?
here.
Uh-huh.
I was a maid for
For
3
who?
years. I was on Dr. Family in San Francisco.
Uh-huh. So what do you remember about Dad when you first met? Anything that stood out? His dynamic personality?
Well, I guess he was pretty much outgoing.
Good looking.
Yeah, he was good looking. Let's see what I was doing. I was going down the stairs and he was coming up the stairs.
Uh-huh. What did he say to you?
Well, I had a coat on my arm and he told me he asked, "Are you finished?" And I said, "Yeah." He asked, I guess he asked me if he can carry a coat, if he can hang it up someplace. And then he asked me if I want to go and have a cup of drink or something, Coke or something downstairs in a restaurant. So that's where we went.
Uh-huh. Do you remember any funny situations that happened to you when you were learning English?
Oh, I was very careful. There were quite a few, but I was so careful I didn't really do any too much school ups. The only thing I thought it was the doctor Block was asking once me to bring him a honey, and he always called his wife honey. So I keep looking and looking and looking at him and looking at her, and I thought, your honey's right there. I didn't say anything, so then he came in the kitchen with me and he saw what the honey was. So I thought that's kind of funny.
What about you, Dad? Any embarrassing moments in learning English?
I guess we had lots of embarrassing moments. However, you know, I don't remember right now any of it, you know, too.
So if you were from Central Valley and Mom was in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
did you get married there and move here right away, or did you live in San Francisco for a while? What happened?
Well, I went to service school, get married, and I went to Japan for 1 year before we.
2 weeks after I said you went to Japan 2 weeks after when we were after we were married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get very well along for first year. Because I went to Japan and she stayed San Francisco.
So how long were you in Japan?
1 year.
Uh-huh. And when did you have Eric?
55.
55. And we married 52.
So 3 years after you were married, you had Eric.
3 years and 2 days.
And then you moved to Central Valley after that.
We moved.
No. Well, he stayed in San Francisco for a while.
What kind of work did he do there after the service?
I stay one television shop, you know, and she stay and work at the Sherman Clay music store there in San Francisco.
So did you have a hard time convincing Mom to move out of San Francisco?
Yeah, I think I had, you know, a little hard time, you know, because I used to go there one time and I said, you going to move now or stay here forever? You know, and she decided she going to go with me, even she did not like, she called the Central Valley Cemetery, but she moved in there anyway.
What kind of religious background did you have when you were growing up and when you were in San Francisco?
I was Lutheran, and the same thing her.
So where were you married?
Lutheran church in San Francisco.
Norwegian Lutheran.
Yeah, Norwegian Lutheran church in San Francisco. That's at 19th Avenue.
No, 19th and
Dolores.
Dolores.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the avenue.
And once you moved to Central Valley, then where did you go to church?
We start to go in the Trinity Baptist Church.
Why did you decide to go to a Baptist church?
Because in Air Force time, we had several of the chaplains there, and I always thought of it, the Baptist saints to know what they talk about it, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I thought of it as a good choice to go to church.
Uh-huh. Backing up a little bit, Dad, to your parents, do you remember anything about your parents at all, Mom or your dad?
Yeah, I remember my mom very well.
What was she like?
She's a lot like was my sister. You remember my sister and all of them.
Mm-hmm.
She was a lot like her. She's like
Looks a lot like her.
Yeah, they are like each other's image.
Uh-huh. And how did she die? How'd your mom die?
I think she died complication of diabetes.
What about your dad? You know anything about him?
No, I didn't know anything about it, but I asked for my mom at who is my dad, and I went to up and looked for him, and I find his wife, ex-wife, but I did not never find him because he went to 1933, he went to Russia, and you know, he never made it back. He walked several times from Siberia, Finnish border, and they get hold of him and ship him back to Siberia.
Yeah, some friend of his told.
Yeah, some friend of his told. And then finally, you know, they 3 times he trying to come back to Finland. They finally put about 200 business, you know, back in a port and sink it in the ice ocean, live on them articles and sink it, you know, that's the way he died.
In a barge?
In a barge. Yeah, that's a Russia for you.
What about your parents? What do you remember about your mom?
Oh, she was a very dynamic woman. She was busy as a bee all the time. Trying to take care of it. And kids was all close by aunts and.
What kind of house did you live in when you were growing up?
Well, it was a old, like a, what you call it, log cabin type house, not the one what we have now, but
How
what
many
they have now.
rooms?
Well, there was 3 rooms, but there was only one room. It was warm, what we could use in the winter time. So all of us slept in one room.
What about your dad?
Oh, Dad was. He was always working hard. He was a gentle guy, very even temperament. And winter time he worked in the woods, and summertime he usually worked on the farm.
Who spanked you when you were bad?
Oh, Mama usually did. Dad didn't do too much spanking. He usually put us to sit down on the bench or something. And said, you sit down there so long as you could.
Remember anything about your school and going to school?
Yeah, we had 2-room schoolhouse. We always had in the elementary. We had 2-3 grades in one room, and then same was in the other room. We had 2 teachers.
How far was your school from your house?
About 3 kilometers.
Okay.
But we always had to walk, or we have to use the winter time. We use skis.
Carl wanted to know how many feet of snow you had to walk through.
Well,
Wintertime, 3 kilometers. With no socks on our shoes.
yeah, there was lots of snow sometimes. But when it was really a lot of snow, sometimes we used most of the time then skis, so we didn't sink all the way through. Otherwise, we probably the snow would have been over our heads.
Well, what kind of work did you do, Dad, after you got to Central Valley?
Oh, I had a little radio shop myself, you know, but I did not work very long. I worked on a motor shop in the Reading for a little while. Yeah, probably about 6-8 months. And that keep my radio shop, you know, for
Yeah, he was
few
servicing and selling.
servicing and selling.
And one of the friends once was telling me afterwards, he said, he tried to sell so hard, and he said, and he talked so much, but he couldn't understand the word what he said. And I told Dad that, and he said, well, I thought if I talk fast enough, that nobody knows the mistakes he's and one of the, what is his name now? He was a game warder, game warder. If he talks fast enough, they don't see the mistakes.
I don't remember his
So
name
what-
anymore.
So when did you start selling furniture?
Well, later on we built that new building here and moved to.
I think we had some in the your late hour parties. I think we had furniture
Yeah,
there.
and we had a some there, but
Well, Cynthia's gonna have some questions for you.
Just a couple. I was wondering if you could think of one memory about each of your boys, or beginning maybe with Eric, a memory you have of him when he was little, or even when he was older.
yeah.
Oh, there's
Just a
there's lots of them, lots of things. There's some funny ones and some what kind. I mean,
whatever might stand out in your mind the most. I know he was interested in airplanes. I'm sure you must have had some experiences
yeah,
with
he
him up
was-
at the airport.
Yeah.
oh yeah, he was always he wanted to go to airport, and then he got his pilot's license before he got his driver's license. So then he was so anxious to take somebody up in the air. Well, that's it. I don't want to go. He didn't want to go, so I was his first passenger after he got his pilot's license.
What about Carl?
Oh, yeah, Carl was always the funny one. Keep us on our toes.
Philip's taking it out.
Well, the one thing I think it was a funny one. Carl I had bought him a good suit, so he had a coat and pants. He was supposed
How
to
old
go
was
to school. Oh, he was in school already. I can't remember what grade it was, but anyway. Then we get ready to go to one wedding, and I said, "Put your nice suit on." And he finds his coat, and he said, "Mommy, where is that bag what I brought from school?" And I said, "What bag?" "No, one that you have been asking me to empty it so many times." And I didn't. And I said, "Well, I told you that if you don't take the bag and empty it, I throw everything in the garbage." So I had put the whole thing in the garbage. That's where my pants were, right bottom of the bag. So we were going to wedding, and he didn't have a pants, so I had to run and buy pants. And Carl was always, I mean, he always liked to, as soon as he came home from school, he wanted to go to play. And then if he had time, he did the schoolwork. And most of the time, it really wasn't done morning before we left the school. So he was a little procrastinator.
Always had a lot of friends.
Oh yeah, he was always busy with friends. Opposite of Eric, because Eric had very few friends. He didn't have many friends.
What about Mark?
Oh, he was the studious one. He always wanted to do everything first what he didn't like it so well, and then if there was time to play, then he played. So he was quite different from either one of them.
All three of the boys get together and do something sometime, or Carl and Mark?
Oh, Carl and Mark were just like a twins. If the one wanted to do something, if other one did it, and Mark was one of it. If I asked something what they want to do or what they want to eat, he always said, "Well, wait a minute, Mommy, I'll go and ask Carl." That's when we were little. So they were really close. But Eric was 6 years older, so he never was too close to the other two.
We were wondering if you had a special memory in your mind that you remember from one of your travels. We know you've traveled a lot, and you've seen some pretty neat places. Which trip around the world stands out in your mind, Pentti?
Well, they all been pretty nice, you know. Hawaiian trips are but nicest one, I think. And South America, we went to Caracas, Venezuela, you know, and that was very interesting because they had a old hotel, which is Makuto Sheraton Hotel, and they had all imported marbles, all the steps and everything, you know, imported from Italy, and that was very attractive place. It's
Did anyone ever offer you a strange kind of food you were afraid to eat?
I don't remember, but every country you go is always have some range food, but I thought of it must be alright because some people still living here and we eat it.
Taimi, what about your travels?
Oh, I like lots of them, but I think a Caribbean cruise was one of the most restful and pleasant one. And I think most interesting one was Hong Kong.
Do a lot of shopping there?
Oh yes,
Bright lights?
Shopper's paradise.
Wow.
Yeah, I wish you kids could go all through too someday. It'd be nice. See
exciting.
places.
Thinking about the future, you have one grandson, two grandsons, one grandson here, one grandson in Texas. And as you look in the future for their lives, what do you, hopes do you have for them? Things that you hope they might get to do?
Well, I think most of it, what I hope that they would trust the Lord early in their lives and serve Him best of their knowledge.
Pentti?
Yeah, that's the most important. You know, and if they find a good occupation and have opportunity to travel, that would be good. Because they can, you always learn something when you go visit for different part of the world, different nations.
Thank you very much for sharing some of your special memories with us, and hope we get to do this again in a little while. How was the sauna, Dad?
Nice and warm.
Nice and warm. Okay, well, we have just a few questions that we would like to ask you tonight, you and Mom. And I guess the best place to begin is in the beginning. So, how about ladies first? And Mom, why don't you tell us where you were born, and maybe just a little bit about things that you might remember when you were a little girl.
I was born in Coeur d'Alene, in my grandmother's house. I don't remember anything about that. I can remember eating there, I can remember going there, and I can remember the house we had in Coeur d'Alene by the park. I seem to remember things when I was maybe 3, when Bob was born. And pushing him around the buggy.
Pushing Bob around in the buggy.
And I can remember asking my mother, how do you get to be on a radio? And she says, so you go to school and you work on a radio, you can work, tell stories on the radio. And she says, do you want to talk on a radio someday? And I says, no, I just want to teach you. And that was the thing.
Okay. Dad, where were you born?
Well, actually born in Seattle, but in a hospital. I wasn't born in the home. Then we lived in a little house out in the Grass Lake area east of Kent. Almost all the way through school. And then the last part, my dad and I kind of bounced around down in Kent, and then back up by the lake on the other side. So.
Were you an adventurous little boy?
Well, I guess so. Yeah. There weren't really any other kids. Well, there was a couple kids about a mile away, but just my brother and I, and he was, of course, 3.5 years older. So most of my time I spent with my dog. I had probably quite a few dogs, would spend time with them, either going down to the creek and getting frog eggs or the frogs or something and falling in.